Waiting for something?
No, we got just till 7 o'clock.
It's 7:03.
At 7, okay. The board ready to begin?
Sure.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 12th meeting and regular meeting of the Town of Pompey Zoning Board of Appeals. We have one item on the agenda tonight, the Steve Perry area variances on Broadfield Road. We are on TV and it's recording everything we say, and he's recording us up here and our attorney. This is a continuation of a meeting from last month, and I'm sure many, if not all of you, were here for that. And so I just want to, for the record, introduce everybody here. I'm David Tessier. I'm the chairman of the board. And on my left and your right is, who's that, Don Neugebauer, Kevin Sharp, myself, Sarah Haynes is our secretary. And was that Dave Hale, who's a long-serving member, and our newest member, Ciara Haynes. Did I say Sarah Haynes? Mm-hmm. Sarah LaJudas, secretary. Ciara Haynes, our new member. Ciara, you might remember last month she was here observing, and then in between got appointed to the board. So welcome to your first official meeting.
Thank you.
Just to repeat, I'll read the advertisement for this meeting. Stephen Perry, variance application to allow for the creation of 2 lots with 60-foot road frontages located at 7940 Broadfield Road, Manlius, 13104, tax map number 00403 44.1 and 00403.49. We went through a lot of details last meeting to get set up, and so with regards to that, did review the environmental form and took another vote on that. It's state that it is a type 2 action, and therefore no further environmental review is required. We reviewed the action from Onondaga County, and they did review the project, and they took no position, meaning that there's local concerns only, and we can this board can take action as appropriate. So is the applicant here tonight? Okay. I'm going to ask you first if you have anything to add from the last meeting. And any new information?
No, other than I spoke with Mr. Leafley. If he's here, he's the other neighbor on the common driveway.
Oh, is that Apex?
Yes, he did tell me he was going to attend tonight. And hoping he shows up. Good.
Yeah.
In the conversation that I had with him, he was very open to working something out with the common driveway, and he was in support of the sub-areas.
Okay. We do have to hear from him because we're dealing with his property. So,
as I said, he did tell me on the phone he was going to come to this meeting.
What's his name again?
Don Leafley.
How do you spell that?
I believe it's Leathly.
He's the head of the Apex Companies.
Yes, he owns it.
Okay.
He also lives on the ranch.
Okay. Yeah. We do need to hear from him.
So I do want to add, when we submitted the application for the planning board for the actual subdivision.
And you
I'm Pat Reynolds with I News and Reynolds. So we had the purchase agreement that you guys that they came up with for the land swap. And that sufficed for the planning board as far as his joining into our subdivision. As far as that goes.
okay.
I didn't bring a copy of that with me. I don't know if you guys have any of that packet stuff now. If not, I can certainly send you a copy of it.
It'd be good to have that in our file.
Okay.
But I don't think that's going to replace having the applicant here.
Perfect.
Any questions from the board from last week? And that once, I mean, any clarifications you need?
Actually, could you clarify for me there's both the zoning and a planning issue on this project,
Yes.
and are both boards deciding on the same issues or? For instance, if we were to say yes or no, does that affect the planning board? Obviously, it would.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. The planning board has met on this 3 times. So at least twice. So they've made some modifications.
So they've had conversations, but they haven't ruled on it themselves yet,
Right.
is that correct?
Right, they can't because they just don't have the frontage.
Okay, so that's why which is why it's back here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they need a variance to the frontage to allow the subdivision and building houses.
Okay. Thank you.
It will, I guess depending on their decision, it'll go back or not.
Yeah, the subdivision plan is wholly dependent on either granting or not granting the variances. So if the
That's the
grant,
clarification I was looking for.
yeah, if the variance,
As well as the audience.
if the variance isn't granted, then the subdivision can't go forward.
So there's no point to meeting with the planning board at that point.
Correct.
Right. But if we do approve something, the planning board can still put conditions on.
Right.
The land uses, their drainage or whatever they want. Any other questions? I know we spent a lot of time on it last meeting. I had a lot of questions and comments.
Without the owner of the lot one, that house here,
He's on his way. I expect him.
he is.
Okay, good. No further information. If he comes, when he gets here, I'd like to have him talk. But we can open the hearing if you want.
We can do
If
that.
you're ready.
Do we have a copy of the map that we can put up somewhere?
I brought some extra
Just so we can
copies.
I've got fun. Yes.
But if I did, we wouldn't be voting on that zero reduction, there's 100, that one lot. We can vote on that at all tonight.
Yeah, with the applicant, the owner shows up.
You know that you, speaking of this, the fellow that owns the ranch house.
The one I had zero road frontage.
Okay, that's existing house with zero road frontage.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a potential to change his lot size.
That's proposed right here, this. Southern line right here is going to move
And
For the purposes, let's just make sure we all understand what we're doing, okay? So right now, I'm frankly unclear as to what the lot looks like today before this. So can you help us with that?
Sure. So currently, right now, the lot comes down the drive just on the west side of this lot owned by Apex Companies. And then this dotted line is the current property line right here. It runs all the way down to the back corner, across here, up this west side, right up to Broadfield Road. This is an existing 60-foot access point, comes along the back of these existing properties. And then out here to another 60-foot access point.
So so what the one change they're making is to lot one, making it bigger by going from here to here.
That's correct. And that's basically to convey what is currently an easement for a septic system.
Okay, so lot one is gonna get a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And then that means the entire lot is gonna get a little bit smaller. And then there's going to be another lot line here that would create lot two and create lot three.
Right.
So this lot here, this small triangular lot, does not have road frontage today.
Right.
Does not.
And it doesn't, it only has 1 acre. This addition will give it 2 acres.
Right. So you're improving a non-conforming lot, which is lot one.
Right.
Making it a better lot by granting. But again, I'm unclear as to like how does this guy here access this farm? Through here?
Through the driveway.
That's correct.
Through an existing driveway that's not on his property.
Right, it's already there, because these guys, the guy in the back owns that driveway.
Guy in the back?
The guy owns,
15 acres.
Driveway.
No, no.
Proposed road.
the guy owns the property right now that's in front of us.
Oh, okay.
He owns that driveway. It's all private.
So the only variances we're asking, so we're not asking for a variance for this one. Or are we?
Well, they've mentioned it in their application.
I saw that.
Yes.
That's why I'm asking the question,
But I don't think we have to do that.
because
It's non-conforming. And there's been a lot of discussion. There's even some in the deed about how this was supposed to be a road, a horseshoe road. And it just looks like it.
yeah,
should
it
have
looks like it should have been.
been. It didn't happen, and that lot probably shouldn't have happened that way, but
So we're looking at two variances for 140 feet on each, on lot two and lot three. That's what we're looking for.
yes.
140-foot variances.
If I could ask, if the subdivision was approved, if it was, how many lots end up on that property? Is it 4 or 5?
Three.
3.
1, 2, 3.
But your question was sharing the driveway. There'd be 4 sharing it if we allowed just that driveway.
Well, I don't know who else shares this driveway.
The house to your left there.
This one and this one?
Yeah.
Both of these?
So there's 2 houses currently sharing the driveway.
Right.
And if the subdivision was to go through, that would allow 2 more building lots
There
or,
were 2 more building lots. One which would have access here.
but that's not there now.
No,
No, it's the frontage.
if it was
It's already have frontage.
Okay, but it's not existing, but it's,
It's existing for, there might not be a driveway there, but the 60-foot.
it's
Access.
there on paper.
Yeah.
Okay. And is determined which lots would access which driveway?
No, that's not, that would be a planning board issue. They would ultimately decide where the ingress and egress for each lot.
Okay,
This lot would not have any access to this 60-foot.
it would not.
It would not. Lot 3 only has access right here. That's the only frontage it would have.
Wasn't some of this?
You have to get some kind of.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Because that's the only access to the road.
How far down does that road access go? I'm sorry, I'm Dan Reisman. I'm here for my mother, Sue Reisman.
Okay.
Who's the property, I guess, to the west,
Yes,
right next to Limestone Creek.
yes.
So how far down does the existing driveway come down into the property.
So, right,
No, I'm talking about the
This
one
one?
that's already there.
so I would imagine it probably just comes in and terminates
Well,
it.
you could drive up through there. Here, it shows it right here. The driveway just stops right there, it looks like.
No, you can drive up through for that first lot.
It's right here.
Yeah,
That's where it goes to.
yeah, this is the end of the drive, and then from beyond there, I mean, it's my, I guess there's like an old quarry and you could
It's
continue on.
overgrown,
In
slightly.
there.
Actually, it's mowed right now, but there's access to that lot right now.
Access to which lot? This lot?
Yeah,
You drive right up to it.
This belongs to this lot, like this 60-foot right of way belongs to lot 2.
Right. I said, it's not overgrown, it's there, you can drive up.
So I thought
So that's what, this is what the variance would be for. It would be, instead of having a 200-foot road frontage, it would have 60-foot road frontage for this lot. This lot road frontage is right here. 60 foot.
But
One thing we discussed was that lot 3, I think it's numbered, could create an easement out to that lot.
Sure.
Then all 4.
Use the driveway.
You would have to have an easement from this part, this from lot 2.
But that's something that the planning board would work out if it came to them. Or could.
Again, the planning board isn't looking at, they're just looking at frontage and access, right? Where can they get in?
Right,
And usually frontage means access.
yes.
If they want to work out their own separate deal to get access from lot 2,
Yeah. That's
that's up to them.
okay.
Now, the Broadfield Road is a county road, so they may have a say in where they're going to allow access.
Absolutely. That's the next step if the planning board says, okay.
Tim, if I, again, just to clarify, so I know what I'm looking at. Potentially, we're looking at 3 lots using 1 driveway that's existing now.
Yeah.
This one, and this one.
Those 3 would use the driveway that's there,
Yeah.
and the other 4th building lot would use the other driveway that's not there.
It's not a driveway, it's just that's where they would have access to.
There's nothing there. It's all overgrown.
It's just 60 foot of
front.
Yeah, I've been there 43 years. I live right next to his now.
Okay,
That's been a right of way. When I bought the house, the White Chapman they owned all the property back there.
oh, so that's
He
been.
told me there's a right of way, just to let you know, all the way down through, right there. Right now, it's all trees and overgrown.
owned it, Chapman?
Dwight and his family owned it.
Yep.
And there was 18 or 20
Let's
acres.
define terms, okay?
So,
Right of way, when you say right of way, that is a legal description of a deed.
well, he said it was a right of way.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
Yeah,
Because-
so I don't know.
And what he really means is,
Yeah.
you have a right to get to this parcel
So it's
from,
not landlocked.
that's not land.
Right.
That, so a right of way is a legal it's a deed or an easement over one person's property to another person's property. So we're not talking about that today.
Right.
We're talking about how much road frontage does each of these lots have? And right now, it seems like these 2 lots, this one being a 8 acre lot, this one being a 9.5 acre lot, has 60 foot of road frontage to access those lots, which is less than what is required by our code. Hence, we're here tonight to determine whether or not we want to grant a 140-foot variance to lot 3 and lot 2.
Right.
Everybody understand where we are tonight?
Yeah.
If I could just add one point from the anecdote
Your
of
name,
Philip Miller.
Do you want to open a public hearing back up though?
didn't we open it?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
thank you. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, and for purposes of Sarah and making it easier for her, just state your name
yes.
so she has it for the record and where you live.
Philip Miller, I'm here on behalf of Stu Reisman.
And I'm reading the resolution of the Onondaga County Planning Board meeting dated April 26, 2023, which states that the applicant is proposing to re-subdivide 2 parcels into 3 parcels. Lot 1, 2.018 acres, lot 2, 9.55 acres, and lot 3, 7.919 acres in a Farm F zoning district. Yes,
That's correct.
And
That's the subdivision, which is really the purview of the planning board.
so I heard someone mention a 4th lot.
There is no point.
No,
And
I was just trying to clarify. I want to make sure I understood it. And the reason I was using the word term four is because there's an older house there and there's a newer house there, sharing the driveway. That's there.
That the 2 that are on the road are 2 separate lots, and that's not 2 or 3.
Right.
So there's 4 lots, 3 sharing the driveway, right?
Yes, and that's, I was just trying to clarify
Yeah,
that.
okay, I just want to be sure that I didn't sound like
But
that.
that doesn't come into what we're dealing with tonight.
it was further my understanding that the county planning board indicated that lot 3 to have a 60.01 frontage on Broadfield, and lot 1 and 2 do not indicate any road frontage.
Okay, so lot 2 has, based on this map, a 60-foot road frontage. Lot 1 has
The same.
0, very minuscule.
Might be 10 feet.
Maybe a little bit because there's a point that comes to the road.
10 feet.
But lot 1 is an existing lot with a house already on it that always has accessed Broadfield Road from a apparently private driveway in this avenue, in this section of lot 2's property.
the map does show a 15-foot easement,
Yeah.
at least partly on there.
It does. Does that answer your question?
I'm not sure where you get 140-foot variance.
Okay, because we require 200 feet of road frontage for a variance,
Right,
or for a buildable lot.
buildable lot.
These 2 lots, lot 3 and lot 2, which is what we're looking at tonight, those are the only 2 we're looking at, only have 60 foot. So 200 minus, I'm an attorney, my math is usually not great. 200 minus 60, in my view, was 140. So that would require 140-foot variance for lot 3. And this would require 140-foot variance for lot 2. That make sense?
Yeah, is that what the application is requesting?
Correct.
That's the amount of the variance.
They need 200, they have 60, so the 140 is the variance they're looking for.
So we're varying from the town standard. 140 foot. There's actually, that makes sense, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Any other questions?
Debbie Evans on 7900 Broadfield Road. So is he I should ask him, but are they gonna make that in between Riceman's and our house? Are
This
they
is
gonna-
yours right here?
Yeah,
79.
and the one next to it, are they gonna try to make
This here?
no? Yeah, in between.
And yours.
Are they gonna make a road or?
Not a road. At this
driveway.
point, it would just be a driveway to access this lot 3.
Okay, see, that's what we talked about last month about that being flooding Sue because it's so wet.
She's already in the floodplain.
Yeah,
She gets flooded out every year.
yeah,
I mean, the water is right up to her door.
but she's way down here and we're like up here, so it's,
So understand, just everybody understand
okay,
that today, without doing anything, a house can be built right here and they can build a driveway right here.
Even with.
With this whole, with this whole lot, so this is one lot, let's just say that this is one lot right now. So they can build a house anywhere in here,
yeah,
put a driveway down here, put a driveway down there to access that one house. We're talking about one additional house on either of these lots. Right now, you can put 1 there. They're asking to put 2.
So how is it that they can put one without anything? So you're saying.
Because it's already there. There's no you don't. This lot exists. This is a buildable lot right now.
Because they have road access.
Because they have 120 foot of access. And whenever they divided these properties up, and I don't know when that was, they allowed them to do it with 120 foot of access. Or 120 foot of road. Right?
So that's a done deal.
That's done.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
Yes. So I mean, I understand the purview of this.
I'm sorry, just get your name.
Dan Reisman.
Okay, got it.
Sue Reisman's son.
Okay.
So who's representing Sue Reisman? You or
Both of us.
Okay, both of you. That's great representation.
So I understand the purview of the zoning board. I'm actually on the Village of Fayetteville Planning Board. So totally understand that you're only here to look at the variance from what your code says. Right. Understand that. The concern is that the impact of the variance and the variance will have has not been addressed. I've not seen any engineering. I've not seen anything about how what will be done on that property is going to impact the neighbors and of course, specifically my mother. We've heard, I sat through the meeting and read the minutes and sat through the meeting and sat through it again yesterday to keep it fresh. But nobody we're trying to boil this down to just a variance when the variance will be creating a myriad of things. Everybody here has said how cumbersome and how wet the land is. If you disrupt the land by building a house, if you disrupt the land by creating a driveway or an access point, you're going to, water flows down, water moves. So nobody has addressed those things. And I think before you issue a variance on something, you need to know what that impact is going to be.
Thank you. And we have heard all those comments as a board.
So let's break it down and make it very clear, okay? When he speaks of impacts, what are we talking about? We're talking about the impact of building one additional residential home on either not a 8 acre property or a 9.5 acre property.
Right.
So, and when you go through your balancing test,
yes,
that is what you will be considering, right? What is the impact of allowing one additional home on right now? What is
15 acres,
15 acres, 16 acres, maybe? Yeah, 16 acres. So
yeah,
that is the impact. One additional home on a 16 acre parcel.
And the driveway.
Well, yes, but it's a buildable lot.
But you don't know what that impact is because you haven't seen any engineering.
Well,
When I built my house, I didn't have any engineering done. I mean, everybody has a right to build a house without having, now they require silt fences, I imagine.
maybe.
Maybe, it depends on the code.
Yeah.
But when you're disturbing more than 1 acre, for instance, and when you're building one house, you're probably not disturbing more than 1 acre, but if you were, then the code enforcement office would require them to provide some kind of stormwater pollution prevention plan, which would identify any drainage issues that may occur. But that's not the purview of this board. Our planning board issue.
But you say one additional home, but I just read the planning board minutes that said the remaining land split into lot 2, 9.55 acres, and lot 3 is 7.91 acres.
Correct.
So that would be 2 additional homes.
No, because he can always.
You can always build one right now. You could build one on the 16 acres.
So have them build the one right now.
That's up to this board's making a decision.
We turn down this request. You can only build one house. But
He can build one, he's requesting the opportunity to build 2. That's the application.
His application is to build 2.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're making the conclusion that he's only going to build 1.
No.
Just one behind my house. Next to Sue. The additional one to get to that, they'd have to put an access road in.
Right.
The only thing I said, I'm Bob Evans, the only thing I'm saying is, Mike looked at my yard, you can see the water, doesn't affect me because she's downhill.
yeah.
It's dug right out. When it rains, it's that deep, that wide, and take a look at the NIMO pole, it goes in a deep ditch right into, and it just comes right down. I built it up over 43 years along that whole thing where that access road is gonna go in. You cut that out, you better have a lot of drainage, because it's gonna probably take that road. Now, the other guy is not here. It's on the other side of the creek, and he's lost his driveway. He's built a berm, the Burns. They built a berm that high because it goes down through there. I'm not saying anything, but take a look at the telephone pole. I think you went by today.
Yes, I did.
And you waved to me, I was on the porch.
Yeah, I did.
Well, it's about, if you look at the telephone pole, I built a thing in there before that pole, because it just took taking everything out. It's that deep of dirt and sod gone. And eventually, if I don't do something or call 911, that pole's gonna be gone.
This is from there.
And from there, if you take that all out, it's gonna go to his mother's house because it's right downhill. And it comes off, it's all springs back behind my house. It just dried up. Well, Mike went back there. How much standing water is back there? And that was a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
Not my property. I mow it. I'm just saying, Steve, it says there's a pond. It's all springs back there. Goes off that hill, goes around my wood pile, goes along the side. You take that out. His mom's getting it. If you don't drain the hell out of it, that's all I'm saying. I don't, you build a house. You got the right to build a house. We know that. I've known that for 43 years. I'm just saying, I've seen the water go through and take the driveways right out. And his mother's house, 3 times, 9 feet of water in that cellar. First time in 81, it took the whole wall out. Wow. Dwight put a double wall in there. After that, I mean, the guy's not here, but he's on the other side of the creek. And the one across from his mother, kitty corner, that was Norm Swanson. I don't know if you know Norm, he's a big builder. Yeah. He builds commercial buildings. You know Norm. Mm-hmm. He lived there. It come over so bad on a glass wall that he actually, the Army Corps engineers let him go in Limestone Creek with the new bridges now. They had to put that in. He dug it out, put huge boulders and then blocks of concrete along the side, filled it with dirt, put trees in. Just because the water was, you could not believe it. You know, you've lived there. That water comes down through there. I'm just saying,
we're just worried about Sue's.
About Sue's house. Mine's not gonna affect me at all. The way to go, it's all downhill. If you clear it out of there, you gotta put something if that road goes in.
I'd like to add in concert to what he's saying. I would like to submit copies of the standard flood map for Reisman at 7868 Broadfield, for Burns at 7864 Broadfield, and for Cavaline at 7866 Broadfield. I'll show you the map. They're all in the floodplain. They're in the special flood hazard area. I'm asking to submit this for your review. They're already in a floodplain area. They're already getting water. And the point that was brought up by Mr. Reisman is,
I am too.
And I apologize for not bringing you.
I had to pay $7,900 yesterday. If I take out a loan through the bank, we have to pay FEMA. And it's crazy. I'm telling you, if it's loan and that creek ever gets that high, man, it's gone.
And the question that Mr. Reisman is bringing up is, what evaluation have you made, even for one lot? Will it affect the floodplain? Will it affect their current status?
So I would just like to add real quick, the floodplain is determined by elevation. So the amount of stormwater runoff isn't really taken into play for the floodplain. For example, this property that we're submitting is not in a floodplain. It's just outside of it. So because those properties down by the creek, they're lower, they get in the floodplain for that. Now, one of the things that is possibly getting overlooked is they're putting a house in there. He's not going to be rolling in a double wide and just doing like a gravel driveway. There's going to be some money put into drainage. He's not looking to displace anybody or cause any hardships. So he's willing to work and invest in the drainage there. And it might not be able to produce any runoff, but certainly try to negate any additional runoff.
Well, where is it going to drain? It's going to drain directly into somebody else's.
Well, no, see, you're saying them three houses, they're down below. I'm in the floodplain, and I'm in floodline zone, correct?
I got it. Copy of the map.
Hello.
This is a hearing, not a debate. And send your comments to me, this board, and we'll get answers for you.
Okay.
I want to
say one thing.
Yes, you may.
I live in lot.
Your name is?
John Weasley, and I live in lot 1.
Oh.
They built all of Spruce Ridge south behind me since I've been there. I didn't have any issues at all. I mean, none. And when there was some water impact. I have a kind of a small swale creek that runs through my lot and didn't change. And a lot of the water from which would be, I don't even know which lot it is, a lot right behind me. That comes down my way. But we build on that lot, it actually comes down back through into a lower.
Lot 2 is what it's like.
Right, lot 2. Well, that actually comes down through the middle of my yard, the drainage would. Because the elevation is higher there than it is down there. And it comes off of there now. And then goes down into the ditch, so. And then lot 2 wouldn't affect anybody on that side. I don't believe, and I'm a contractor as well. So. Lot 3, I don't know anything about, and never been over, but I know that whole portion swells down through.
How many of the trees are surrounding that lot that would soak up the water before it continues on?
What was your name?
You know, the Spruce Ridge was nothing.
Let's keep the conversation forward so that
Spruce Ridge was nothing but a Christmas tree farm.
Yep.
They built hundreds of houses there. And now all those trees are gone and the water hasn't changed. That's all I can tell you.
Well, this was built in, these were all filed in 2005. So when that subdivision was constructed, like probably just started the stormwater regulations probably just coming into place in 2005.
Yeah.
So we assume that they properly did that subdivision, which would have included detention basins and swales that would have held water back on the site. And the rate of runoff could be no greater than it was post-development than it was pre-development. So we're not looking at that kind of situation. The planning board might look at that kind of situation.
Yeah.
The zoning board doesn't look at the drainage issues. That would be a planning board issue.
So again, the applicant, if you wanted to build one house on his 16 acres, you wouldn't have to be here. You get a building permit, build a house. Since he wants to build a second one, has to be creating a new lot. And in the process, he's adjusting a third lot, so it becomes a 3-lot subdivision as far as planning board is concerned. But our concern, this board, is the variance. But we still have to balance the benefit to the applicant versus the detriment to the community. So we're listening to all your comments and how much detail we can get into. We want to hire an engineer for a drainage study. I don't think so. We don't usually do that, especially when it's going to the planning board. because they can also do the same thing. So that's our rule. That's what we can do is say yay or nay to the variance request. So anything else?
Yeah, so I guess one of the things that we are.
Your name?
I'm sorry, I'm Karen Burns, 7864 Broadfield Road. So I'm the one, it's not on the map, it's to the left, yeah, the next property over.
Next to Susan Reisman.
Yeah, actually, no.
No.
It's the Cavallini. They're not.
Cavallini comes off from the creek and then we're beyond.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, we've lived in Broadfield for 38 years, and we have had a number of issues with water. And I think it's, you know, like the whole world, it's getting only worse. So I guess what we're wondering is, and I know you're saying it's the next board that has to deal with this, but we're wondering about when we're going to see pictures or whatever, or plans that are going to show that they're not going to make any difference. You're saying that when the development went in, they had to show that they were not going to increase any of the water issues. Is somebody going to do that for our neighborhood?
That again is up to the planning board, and they will take a look at that kind of thing and that kind of detail.
And secondly, we've never heard from the planning board about any of this stuff going on.
They haven't had a hearing yet. They've just had meetings. So they've had discussion.
So,
because we do know there are meetings from those meetings. That's what I
but keep in mind what the chairman is saying. The planning board can't act. They can't do anything until this board makes its action. So if this board moved forward tonight and said, we're going to go through the balancing test and we are going to grant the variances being requested, then it would go to the planning board. The planning board is required to hold a public hearing. You know, one of the conditions of this board might be provide an engineering stormwater pollution prevention plan that would show what runoff would be would affect neighboring properties for one additional house. There's all kinds of things that this zoning board can do in terms of conditions.
Sure.
So
Can they redirect it to the planning board to have that environmental engineering work done prior to granting the variance? Because it's a chicken and the egg thing. I don't personally don't see how you can grant a variance for something you don't know how it's going to impact the neighbors. And if what you're saying is that the type of information that we're asking for is the purview of the planning board, then that's something that they need to get before you guys can be educated enough to grant that variance.
We're not granting a variance for drainage and stormwater. We're not. We're granting a.
I'm not saying that.
We're granting a strict. Can you build this lot with this frontage? Yes or no? And you know, and there's the planning board. It's their job to look at it, code officer, to make sure it follows the state building codes. And that's where they'll look in the detail about drainage. They're much better at it than we are. If we had something to review, we may not even understand it, but that's the planning board's purview.
But that's why you get an engineer to explain it to you. I mean,
but the engineer is going to explain it to the planning board if the variance is granted.
But what he's saying is that one of the criteria, actually two of the criteria that you look at is, will the variance have an effect on the physical and environmental condition of the neighborhood? Okay, and how do you know whether it will or will not unless you look at the potential effect of drainage? You have to make that decision.
Yes, we do.
And so you're just going to make the decision and send it to the planning board and let them look into the drainage and make sure you were correct in your assumption.
And none of those.
I'm not a developer. So if the planning board comes back to me and wants me to spend $20,000 on a drainage study, this whole thing's dead. I just want to know if I can build 2 houses. And if the road frontage that I have will allow me to do that. If this board says, yes, we'll allow you to do that based on what we've heard, then the planning board is going to tell me, hey, Steve, if you're going to do this, we want to know what's your plans with the drainage. Depending on what all that involves is going to depend if I move forward or put a for sale sign on it and sell it to a developer who's going to put 10 houses back there. So I'm really trying to be patient. I understand everyone's concerns and there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I'm putting houses. I don't know where I'm putting driveways. I couldn't even begin to provide the information that you're asking me for because I'm not that far along. And so I'm just asking the board, for the sake of all of our time, to please just make a decision on if I can break this into 2 lots or not, because if I can't, this whole thing's dead. It doesn't matter after that. I either build 1 house or I sell it.
I agree with Steve. I think the elephant in the room here is that what's being asked is to go from 200 feet down to 60. It's 140-foot variance that you're asking for.
Right.
And that is substantial. And in that is substantial, the adverse things that causes. And who's to say how many other people are in the same arena? I mean, how many other people have lots out back that they have 60 feet to get to and have been told they can't build there? That's my biggest concern. And 200 feet down to 60 is a very large request.
But this board has done these variances like this before. We have granted access with driveways in the past. Every application's got to be looked at differently.
That's right.
Individually,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And it has been done.
Yeah, but generally speaking, the case law says that variances don't set precedent for variances because we have to look at the unique situation of each variance. So when we go through the balancing test tonight, those are Kevin may say, I don't care about the other 4 standards. I only care about this one. This is the most important one to me.
Yeah.
The substantiality of this variance. That's okay. I mean, and if other board members agree or not, that's fine too. But there needs to be that discussion, which is going to be taking place in front of all of you, and you're going to hear their rationale as to why they believe the variance should be granted or not. But let's keep it in the context of what we're talking about.
right.
1 additional building lot. 1 additional building lot. Okay, 1 more house.
1 more than it's allowed right now.
But 2 variances.
Correct. 2 variances would allow for 2 houses as opposed to no variances, which would allow for 1 house.
Mike Burns, 7864 Broadfield. What's the reason? Where did 200 feet come from as far as the standard? And what do you take into consideration when you're saying we'll go with 60?
It's been on the books for a lot of years. 30 maybe.
That's a common road frontage. That would be a common road frontage in municipalities with rural character that allow for 1 acre lots. I can tell you, I represent several municipalities that have large 1 acre lots. This is we require 2 acres, but even on a 1 acre lot in most municipalities, 200 foot of frontage is what is a standard type frontage for a 1 acre lot.
I think it was put into effect when the 2 acres was put into effect at that time.
Yeah, it might have been 150 and then it went up to 200.
Yeah.
And it also depends on if you're on water or if you're on sewer. If you're on water, public water, then the road frontage doesn't have to be as large because, or if you're on septic, it's going to be larger. So road frontage is really the spacing between houses.
Okay. And then the second half of my question is, what things would you take into consideration? And I think you went over them at the first meeting, 5 different factors, and I've forgotten what they are. Could you review that?
I can, because we do it eventually anyway. Oh, here's a short version of it. Area variance criteria. Whether the benefit can be achieved by other means feasible to the applicant. Number two, does this action result in an undesirable change in neighborhood character or detriment to nearby properties? Number three is whether the request is substantial. Number four is whether the request will have adverse physical or environmental effects. And number five is whether alleged difficulty is self-created, which it is because the applicant's choosing to build the second house. But none of these are fatal. We have to balance balancing test. Board of Appeals shall balance benefit to applicant with detriment to health, safety, and welfare of the community. So that's what all zoning boards in the state follow. At some point, we will close the hearing and then we will deliberate. If there's we're starting to repeat here, but if there's anything else you need to say? Yes.
I just got one more that I'm not sure that this helps or hurts the argument, but again, we know what he's trying to build. Is there any consideration, good or bad, if that instead of one house, he builds two houses, all go to that same driveway? Is that a possibility, or does that make any difference?
You're referring to the existing
driveway, existing common driveway.
I personally have no issue with that.
Yeah, me either.
And John and Rick, they own the other two houses that I would serve.
As far as ingress and egress, I don't have a problem with that.
It can help with snowball.
Right.
The only question I have is on trash day. Like we got on our easements back then, the trash truck backed up to your garage and took your trash. You know, now there's trash there and stuff like that. And
you're sharing the driveway, but you're not sharing cans.
Right. But I mean,
you've got
as far as getting mechanicals up in there, ingress, egress, I don't see a problem with it.
You've got 60 feet to work with. You can make a double wide driveway for a short distance.
But Don, you're asking the question. I'm assuming you're asking the question in the sense that if they have one driveway and it was on
right
over here, that would reduce the amount of impervious ground for a driveway here and alleviate some of the concerns that are being raised tonight.
Right.
Is that what
I'm asking? If that is a value to consider?
Okay, well,
I asked that same thing last meeting.
And we did
discuss it.
So
That was a better idea.
could you put a condition on a variance if you wanted to grant a variance tonight to that effect?
We could
probably that any access to lot 3 would be through an easement from lot 2.
So
we could do that
east of Spruce Ridge South. There's 3 houses there that all share a common driveway. They don't have anywhere near 200 feet. They're right on top of each other. And actually,
we're undermining the whole purpose behind road frontage, but
yeah,
that's a different story.
Be farther spread out.
Which again leads to setting a precedent, right?
I understand.
I prefer to use the upper common driveway for both lots. I think it makes more sense.
Yeah.
I think that the house that would go on lot number 3, I would want it higher up the hill anyway.
Which means over here?
Yeah, and not down toward the bottom. And from the day we started talking about this, that was always my vision. I don't believe that the town liked that idea when we originally just discussed it, off the record. They were concerned about 4 people using the same common driveway and kind of how that would get structured. And so we kind of abandoned that idea and went to this idea. But if this board feels that that's a possibility, that is certainly something I'm willing to add.
One thing I will say is that part of the concern with the town is after a while, you got 4 homeowners that get sick of taking care of their driveway and they want the town to take it over. So
but it's not going to be built to town standards, so it's never.
So it probably would never happen, but
it's too expensive.
Yeah.
Just so I'm speaking to you directly, Don, just so you understand. While that might be a condition on the variance, I don't know the answer to this, but my gut tells me the planning board could still say, I don't like that condition, and now we're back to square one, which is the variance that was granted is based on a condition that the planning board might not find acceptable. So just so you, I think that's how it would play out. That's at least how I would think it would play out in my mind.
I suppose we can always make a recommendation, but then it's not a.
Yeah. But there's valid reasons for that condition.
Yeah.
And
it's based on what we've heard.
Yeah.
Here. Is there anything else new and different we haven't heard tonight? And
I was curious, is the party that owns the property who has a swimming pool that's encroaching?
yes,
Are you here?
yes, he is.
Yeah. And you've got an understanding that if this goes through, they're gonna be granting to you an easement or conveying the property to you.
Correct.
So you have.
I'm buying it, yeah.
You have an interest that this goes through then.
Well, sure, we'll do it anyway.
yeah,
Oh,
he doesn't, so this subdivision includes this delta right here, or this gap of property. So it looks like they're gonna convey 117 by 466 foot through the subdivision process. If this weren't subdivided, we have, I think in the town of Pompey, some concept called the division of land or merger of land, where you can agree to just sell this parcel without going through a subdivision process. Just by adding land, because you're not changing anything, you're not changing the lots, you're just changing the size of the lots.
The lot line adjustment. As long as you're not changing the use or the zoning, the code officer can
That can be done administratively.
subdivision map. So
That question was asked last month. I'd asked the applicant if he'd be willing to still go ahead if this project went down. And he shook his head or agreed that he'd still work with them, whether or not this was approved.
Right, it would solve lot one's problem with this. It's here, plus it would make it a more conforming lot to our code. Which we always want, right? We always want our lots to be more conforming to the code, even the non-conforming lots.
That's a whole other question on that one.
anything else? We ready to close the hearing? Someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Yeah, second.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? If not, motion to close the hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Hearing is closed. Now we got to make a decision, one way or another. Consider, I think we all understand what we have to do, what we're looking at two variances from each from 200 down to 60, and a possible condition that two resulting lots, driveways will be put on the easterly 60 foot
on the westerly foot of lot 2. Yeah, the 60 foot
comes in on a lot 2 part.
Yeah, and it's.
Well, there's 2 60-foot easements, and that's the
one servicing lot 2.
Can you just point to where we all know?
Right here, this lot. So this is lot 2 right here. And it would be the lot servicing lot 2, or the 60 foot serving lot 2.
Okay. I think all the maps I've seen show that as lot 2 and the other one is lot 3.
Correct.
Okay.
I'd like just make a mention. When they came up with this 200 foot of road frontage, I think Pompey's idea behind that the houses wouldn't be stacked on top of one another.
Right.
So in this situation, the houses are gonna be way back. I mean, they got plenty of the acreage to do it. You won't be on top of the person in the front on Broadfield. That's kind of how I gathered from over the years. They just didn't want the stacking of houses. So
that goes to question 1 or 2, which is the community character. So it's not going to change if the variances were. So maybe you want to go over and just kind of talk about the 2 questions.
That's the way to start before we vote. Make a motion even. Oh, I just had it.
your card.
It's better stated. I got the application, so I looked for it. Thank you. Okay, let's consider whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other feasible method. Now, there's no specific vote here, but we do discuss it, and sometimes we take a straw poll so that we know how our feelings are. So, you think there's any other feasible method of getting 2 houses in there?
I don't see any other way to
do it. All the avenues been covered on that.
Okay.
The applicant is asking to provide 2 houses on 16 acres.
Yeah.
The only way you can do that in the town of Pompey is by subdividing it.
Yeah.
So that's the question. Is there any other method to put 2 houses on it? Now, you can decide you don't think 2 houses are necessary on 16 acres, but that's okay. But for purposes of that question, the answer is in the town of Pompey, there is no other way.
Right. So that's a no. Number 2, whether the variance will result in an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood.
I believe it won't.
I don't think it will either. I don't think.
Not with the development next door.
Right.
And
what David, or what you were mentioning before, David, which is these houses are going to be set back. So the issue of seeing houses stacked right next to each other along the road is really not an issue here because you won't
even see them.
Right.
Okay. So we say no to that one. Number 3 is whether the request variance is substantial. Even the applicant has said yes here, so I think we have to agree that it's a substantial request.
Based on needing 200 and only having 60, 140 would be substantial.
Yes, 70% reduction. They're about.
But again, we need to think of substantiality in not only the context of mathematics, but in the context of the setting, which goes back to question number 2. And whether, so just kind of think about that too.
Not substantial in the whole scheme of the neighborhood.
But in terms of frontage, right? Mathematical calculation for frontage, it probably is substantial.
Yep.
So the next one, number 4, whether the variance will have an adverse effect on physical or environmental conditions.
Well, we've talked a lot about that.
Yes. So,
and will one house on 8 acres, at least for lot 3, will that have a significant environmental impact?
And typically I'd say no, but the driveway is probably the issue. Once you pave the driveway down at the lower point, put in a culvert pipe, maybe it's just going to cause more problem downstream.
And you're going to mitigate that problem potentially by,
if we consider
a condition,
but yes.
Okay.
I guess I'll say my thing, I guess that condition, in my view, it helps the environmental aspect of having the driveway in the lower area, but it also kind of changes that frontage. You're almost looking at it like 60 feet now for the two instead of each of them having two. So that's creating another issue. Like you said, the trash having at least 4 to maybe 8 cars or something in and out of there instead of using the two.
Yeah, so all your density is going to be focused on that 160 foot. Right.
Yeah. No question. You're still gonna have the same amount of cars coming out of the development. They're just gonna be on one road instead of two.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're absolutely right. But is that still better?
Right.
Than disturbing down below.
So.
Okay.
If we put that condition in there, we could say we've at least attempted to mitigate the environmental impact.
And on that issue, it does kick the decision down the road a little bit to planning. If we go forward with this, they can further address that.
Yes. And whether the alleged difficulty was self-created and that's a yes.
No, I have to say, I don't like that question because isn't it always yes?
Almost. That's why they're here. The only time is if you bought a property and you started the project and the town changed the zone after you had planned it, you could say, well, no, not my fault. They changed the zone on me, but I've not.
That's one consideration out of 5 in terms of the benefits of the applicant versus the detriment to the community.
Yeah.
If this were a use variance, any one of those 5 yeses would be a death knell to granting the variance. That's not the case with an area variance.
No, we go back to determine if the benefit to the applicant outweighs the detriment to the community. We're considering a condition. I think we should create that first and see if that makes a difference or have it in mind. If it's a condition, that the driveways to the lots 2 and 3 exit on the
60 foot of frontage on lot 2.
60 foot of frontage on lot 2. That's, can we vote on the condition first and then add it and then vote on the?
Well, I think you should discuss the condition, and if everybody thinks that makes sense, then
we'll include the condition.
Okay, that works. That's probably the better way to do it. Does that wording of a condition sound right?
It does to me. One other condition I'd like to ask the board's opinion on is right now we're looking at the potential for 2 additional houses on the property. And we put a condition in that says it'll only ever be 2 and the subdivision can't include 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Because there's a point when how many houses do you want to allow on a driveway?
The answer is I don't think you can legally. The property owner can always come back and ask for more lots. But that would require more variances, and that would require more of everything. More public hearings.
20 years from now, somebody says, excuse, my daughter wants to build a house next to me, and that would be a 5th house using the driveway, and that would come back to.
You got to be right back.
Well,
there.
I think that, right, I mean, when does a driveway become a road? Is really the question. And I think if you want to put the condition on the condition, like in other words, say, we only want 4 lots to use this driveway. I don't think you can say you can never build another house here because you also have potentially this.
Okay, effectively we would be. Well, no, you have the other.
Yeah, you have this here.
Okay.
So I think that the condition that only those 4 homes can use that shared driveway, I think that might be okay.
What I would lean towards that.
That's kind of a 2-step condition. that all four should go there and
Only the
only
four.
four.
Those four and only four.
So only lots 1, 2, 3. For our purposes, that's all we have to say because. James?
Holden's
using it right now. And we're not involved in that discussion.
No, that exists.
Right, so it's really just lots 1, 2, and 3. Mrs. Holden already and Mr. Holden already have the right to use that. Are you Mr. and Mrs.?
No,
Are they here?
it's Mr. Holden.
Okay, and are you okay with this? Because in the end, like you have a right of way, now that right of way is going to be extended to these other 2 lots.
I don't own the land, so I can't say that. I'm concerned with the higher volume.
Yeah.
With the trash being down there, stuff like that. The ingress and egress, I don't think is a problem.
Okay.
Site distance.
Well, the site distance is there. I mean, people are using it already.
It's far less on the upper driveway.
Yeah.
I think we should mention lots 1, 2, 3 and Mr. Holden's lot. Just to say that's the fourth. That would be the fourth person using that.
That's 4 driveways on.
1 driveway servicing 4 potential houses.
Residents.
They have to help us.
If you say that, are you essentially shutting down the 60 feet on lot 3?
No, it's
They can be big. I mean, so you're saying that for lot 3,
you make
for one house on lot 3, it's for one house on lot. So the residents on lot 3 will be
3, 2, 1, and George's.
Right. But if lot 3 becomes lot 4, 5, 6, and 7 someday, then they have 60 feet right here.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that's not going to happen. I'm not, but from a planning standpoint, you have to think through that. It's probably unrealistic to just subdivide this lot any further than that one lot.
To satisfy my own curiosity, Mr. Perry, was that real estate up for sale? Did these people have an opportunity to purchase that land?
No, I knew the family that owned it. And when they originally were going to sell it, there was a nephew in the family.
So you had first right?
Yeah, and the nephew decided that he wasn't interested, and so they called me and asked if I was interested in the property still.
Because oftentimes in a situation like this where somebody has the opportunity to say, you know, I really didn't want that in my backyard, I will buy that property from you. And then that can't happen because I now own it. But that
my knowledge, that didn't happen.
Okay.
Everything's for sale.
Okay, I think we have the condition. Waiting on it. Should we ask our secretary to read it back to us? What she's got?
I need it. And from start to finish.
All right, so the condition would be that lots 1, 2, and 3 will be serviced from an access driveway to lot 2. Period.
Along with Mr. Holden?
Again, we aren't making decisions for Mr. Holden tonight.
Yeah.
He's already got his deal with the owner of lot.
We do have his deed on file, and I think even before you owned it, maybe not. We have your deed on in the file here. It was submitted to us.
We have a recorded
an easement.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's not necessary and not our decision at this point.
Right.
Okay, I got it.
And then I would just add the reason for this condition is to limit the amount of impervious ground or impervious pavement on lot 3
Is to
limit the amount of impervious pavement on lot 3, which is known to have flooding issues as expressed at the public hearing for this variance.
We got it.
All right. Good. Okay. Is there a condition? Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'd make motion to approve the variance of 140 feet.
For lot 3 and lot 2.
For lot 3 and lot 2. With the condition noted.
Okay. Anything else?
I know you're in the middle of something.
Well, the hearing's closed too.
I understand that, but you're only approving the variance for lot 2. You're not.
No, we're approving the variance for lot 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
That's what we just said.
Yes. Both lots. Right, lot 2 and 3. Okay. I didn't think any further. Want to add to that? So, do we have a motion?
Have a motion?
Oh,
I made the motion.
Oh, good. We have a second.
I'll make a second.
Dale seconds. Any further discussion? No. Let's call a roll call vote in this case. So Don?
I'll say yes.
Kevin?
No.
I vote yes. Dave?
Yes.
And Sierra?
No.
Okay. So it's a
3-2 vote.
3-2. And that's a quorum. 3 votes.
Just to clarify the record, the 2 no's were for both variances, right? Like for both variances, and the 3 yeses were both for both variances.
Yes.
For lot 1, or I'm sorry, for lot 2 and lot 3. Okay, so just make sure the record reflects that, Sarah.
Yeah.
So there were really 2 separate votes that really should have taken place, but if that's what the desire of the board is, because you have to, you have to say it again. Yeah, so the variance on lot 1, or I'm sorry, on lot 2, it was, if Don voted no. I'm sorry, Don voted yes, Kevin voted no. David voted yes. David voted yes, Sierra voted no.
Right.
Okay, so that's lot 2. Let's do a separate vote now on lot 3. Just so we have the record clear.
Okay.
I'm assuming we're gonna have the same vote.
Same.
Yes, I'll stay with my yes vote.
So you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
David,
Second. Okay. And a roll call vote.
I'll say yes again.
Okay. Kevin?
No.
I'll say yes.
Yes.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. That's the way to do it. That's why you're here. Thank you. We've got some more business coming up to do in the next meeting, I think. If somebody finishes their application. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your patience. We do need a motion to adjourn. You did? Is there a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. James Byrne.
Very good. Our discussion.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much.